Greetings and welcome to another episode of advanced tutorials for the Smart Grid Layout extension for Contact Form 7 plugin. In this little tutorial, I'm going to show you how the Smart Grid changes the default admin interface of Contact Form 7, allowing you to actually customize your backend interface. You may or may not be aware that WordPress allows you to customize, for example, your tables. In fact, it allows you to customize any dashboard interfaces. But one of the most common ones is to actually add an extra column in your post table. Now, by default, the Contact Form 7 plugin does not actually use a standard table page. It uses an admin.php and a custom page, WP CF7. And this is a problem in the sense that this entire table has been coded using an approach to creating custom admin tables, which was introduced back in version 3 of WordPress, also somewhere around there. So it's quite an old approach and does not anymore comply with the WordPress core functionality and standards. And as a result, this table is not customizable. You cannot actually use any of the WordPress core functionality to actually add an extra column in this table. It just doesn't work. And in order to do this, one has to completely change the way this interface is built. And this is one of the things that the Smart Grid does for you. So if I now activate the Smart Grid extension and I go back to the contact form, you'll now notice that the table is the WordPress core edit.php file rather than the admin.php. And therefore, this table now is back into the WordPress core fold, allowing you to leverage the WordPress core functionality, such as adding extra columns and interacting with a much richer interface. How do you, for example, add an extra column? Well, there are plenty of tutorials out there, and I will link this in the video description for you to go through. The WordPress documentation lists two main actions required. One is the manage custom post column, which is used to actually print out the values for each forms. And here is another one from the WordPress documentation, which actually allows you to add custom columns. So I'm not going to go into the details of how this works. This is something that you can follow either with this article, or you can Google or you can do a YouTube search for managing custom columns. There are plenty of tutorials out there. What I'm going to do, on the other hand, is use a custom code that I've actually prepared for demonstrating how you can add an extra column here to actually count the number of time a given form has been submitted. Something which can be quite useful if you have different forms and you want to keep track of the number of submissions, or the statistics of the number of submissions. So in order to do this, I've created a small sample code for you to use, and this is available on my GitHub repository. And again, I will provide this link down in the description. Here is a Smart Grid sample codes. which I will continue to add to as I produce different tutorials. But right now there is only a current one, which is this in the admin section, custom submission count column. This is the one that you want. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually basically copy this following code and paste it. Let me get the raw form and paste this into the functions PHP file. So this is the my functions PHP I'm using currently. So I'm going to paste this code in here. Now let's see if we have these filters that are being added, and these are standard WordPress filters that are being used to add additional columns. I will post the links to the documentation in the description of this video. This populates this custom column that have been added. So far is pretty simple, and in order to populate it, I'm storing a meta value for every single post, for every single form, which is stored as a post, and that post ID is used to retrieve the meta value for this form, and which has got its submitted counts. And then here, every single time a form is being submitted and the contact form 7 plugin action fired, this action is fired just before the mail is being sent. So this form has been successfully submitted. I am tracking the submissions, and basically what I'm doing is I'm updating the count for that form by storing that value into this meta field. Here what is happening is that I'm doing a check to see whether there is an actual form that's been submitted. I have found in the past that this action sometimes fires in some setups, fires without a form actually being submitted in the back end. I'm not sure why that error happens with contact form 7, but the way I filter it out is just to make sure that there is actually a form that has been submitted, and that this form object is not empty. Similarly, what I'm also doing is that in the version 4.4 of this plugin, you are able to actually preview your form and test your form by submitting it, and the plugin actually inserts a hidden field which flags this submission as being a preview, and in this little count here, basically what I'm doing is that I'm returning from this function without actually counting that submission if the submission is coming from a preview form. Similarly, you could also track who is the current user being logged in. If this form was submitted with a logged in user, you might want to break if this user is the admin user. They might be testing a page, making sure the form is working. You might want to actually not count any submitted users. So by default, any user which is logged in would just not trigger this counts mechanism. And here the case 0 is when there is no logged in user, then the submission is being counted. So there are various ways of filtering out which submissions you do want to count, and I leave that up to you to customize. So in this meta field we have the total counts for every single submissions. Now if I then refresh the page, you now see that this count column appears, and we can start counting the number of submissions for any given forms. So let me, for example, take this is an example. Okay, let's have a preview. This. Okay, and now if I go back to my table form, this should still remain to 0 because this is a preview form, and as you can see, I've just reloaded this and it's still set to 0. So now I'm going to go back to the code here, and I'm going to remove this check as well as this break here. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually counting preview submissions, and I'm also counting submissions by the user, by the admin user, which is the user I'm currently logged in. So let's go and test this again. Now, so a useful feature is that when you refresh the page, whatever you submitted in the previous preview submission is being repopulated into the form fields, thus saving me time in having to fill in these fields. There's a small separate video tutorial on this part, previewing and testing forms. So you can look at that video and to see how it works and how to use that. So now if we resubmit this value and so you see now I actually have a count of 1 for this form. So that's just a little demonstration of how you can actually customize the backend by adding an additional column. Thank you.